this video I will be introducing the study guides for legal research and talking about Perusall, which is the platform that the study guides are uploaded onto for you to access them. So before I get to the study guides themselves, let's talk a little bit about Perusall. First of all, note that it's spelt in its own peculiar internet way, so that it's a trademarkable name. But when you come to look for it, don't try and spell it with the ordinary spelling. Remember the extra L. So what is Perusall? Perusall is a social learning platform, and it's kind of a combination of a digital library like Kindle and a social media platform like Facebook. And it puts those two concepts together to provide a way of sending out documents to learners, but also allowing you to engage in conversation directly on the documents themselves. Now, this is not a compulsory part of the course. If you want to, you can just get into Perusall, download your materials, and you never have to look at it again. However, I do encourage you to have a bit of a look out around the what's offered on Perusall and then experiment with them and see what's possible, because it's quite different to the forums that are in Moodle, which admittedly are pretty poor forums at the best of times, because you can actually put comments directly on the documents themselves and then engage in others in conversations around the documents. You can ask questions directly onto the documents. If you want to get someone's attention, such as myself or another student, you can tag those with the person's name, and in that circumstance, Perusall will send an email directly to that person and let them know that someone has asked a comment directly on the document. Otherwise, I only find out what's in the conversation by sort of scrolling through haphazardly and seeing what I see. So I'm quite happy to answer your questions on Perusall, but remember to tag me in your question if you want to make sure that I will definitely see that question come up and be notified of it. Beyond that, it works pretty much like you would expect other forms of social media, except for the fact that information doesn't disappear off the bottom of your feed. One of the reasons why Facebook's a pretty poor way of distributing learning information is if you've got enough friends on Facebook, let alone the way the Byzantine way in which the Facebook algorithm operates, you'll lose that information pretty quickly. It'll end up at the bottom of your feed and people will say, "Why did you invite me to your party?" And you say, "I put it on Facebook," and of course no one saw it. One of the advantages of many that Perusall has is that everything stays there, so you'll never miss out on parts of that conversation, and if you look at a section, you'll see what other people have said. So I encourage you to have a go at using it, particularly if you're not the kind of person who makes it to or participates in the weekly workshops. It's a way of staying active with your learning. If you're someone who lurks in the workshops or watches them later on, it's a way of being actively engaged. Now, Perusall is set up for me to be able to mark people's participation on the service. I haven't done it for this subject, obviously, or it would be in your assessment list, but it means it's designed to keep track of who's engaged, who's active, who's doing what. So I can look at some behind the scenes information. I can see who's active, who's engaged, and who's involved there. So if you are in a position where you are unable for whatever reason to be active in your course in other ways, this is a good way of reassuring me that you are still active, you're still out there, you're still breathing, you're still engaging with your subject work. All right, what else did I have to tell you about Perusall? In terms of how you get into Perusall, you don't need a new login. You can use one of many different logins, from Google to Facebook logins to Twitter. You just register that as your login in Perusall. One thing I would suggest though is make sure you use your real name when you create that identity in Perusall, because that makes it much easier for me to know who's in discussions and what's going on. Because if you've put yourself as Jedi Killer 661, you can't really expect that I'll know who that is when I come to looking at your comments in Perusall. So it's not obligatory or anything, but it's just going to be confusing if you use a pseudonym there. So all the registration details are in Moodle. It's basically you go to the Perusall page, you put in a code for this subject, and away you go. You're ready to access all this stuff. All right, so that's where things are accessed. Reassure people who are uncertain about another media platform that it's not required. It's not one of these things that that you are going to be marked on. However, if you are not someone who's regularly engaging in the subject in any other ways, it's a good way to actually enhance your learning and to get in there and make sure you're regularly getting into conversations, asking questions, even putting in silly comments or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It just shows that you're alive and you're out there and that you're actually engaging in your work. Because if we were an on-campus subject, on-campus degree, it would be much easier for you to evidence that what you're doing, because you'd be in class every week and we'd be seeing you. This is one way that you can actually get involved that doesn't require that. All right, so let's work through some of the different sections in the study guide. It might be a little different to study guides you've seen before. It has what I could kind of describe as a magazine format. There's lots of different sections. They're shorter sections. They're more punchy. They're more focused, because this is not a subject that's based on an area of doctrine. It's not an area where we have this is the law, this is the overview of the area, and this is the beginning, middle, and end. There's a lot of different topics and a lot of different issues that come up in the research field. And by breaking into separate sections, we have a format by which you can access information quickly. You can dip in and out while you're studying, so you don't have to do all of each study guide at once, and you can locate information more easily over time when you have to go back to it. So let's talk through each of the sections. The first section is readings, and that's, I guess, makes sense. You know what those are. But these readings have several different roles in the course and serve several different purposes. So some of the readings are introductory material and things you may have come across before in your foundation first year, and I've put them back in here as a way of getting reacquainted with information, because you're going to lose information over time. No one remembers everything, and it might be some weeks it's a good reintroduction to, well, what are precedents, how you use them, how do you distinguish precedents, and so on. Other readings are about the nature of legal research and the legal profession and how it's changing. And legal research is one area that is rapidly changing. And every year there are new technologies, there are new forms of automation which make a lot of what lawyers used to do redundant. And it's certainly an area where, if you look at the old research guides from sort of the 1990s, it was very much the how do you look up a case step by step. This is how you look up a case, this is what you type in. We really can't do that anymore. Every time you come up with any kind of guide as to how to use OSLI or anything else, the next week there'll be new technologies, there'll be new menus, new formats. So the readings cover lots of different things, and the idea is to give you a really broad perspective on how legal research fits into multiple legal careers and some of the ways in which those careers are changing. I mean, the obvious one being you don't spend time in mouldy old libraries finding books like you used to when I studied law, and that's been an amazing change that's occurred in not such a long time ago. All right, so that's the reading section. Then that section is followed by the legal skills matrix. And I've mentioned this concept before. This is a way of breaking down the entire skill set of legal research into 12 weekly components, and they're connected to the workshops, the RAMP workshops you'll be doing each week, to give you an idea of what is the legal research process in 12 stages. These are also arranged into tiers to give you an idea of how we expect your skills to develop throughout your degree. So level A, the first level, is the sort of knowledge we expect people who are interested in a study of law will come into law with as part of their background. Level B is the sort of knowledge we expect a first year student to achieve. Level C is graduate knowledge, and that's the knowledge that we're focusing on in legal research. And that's the knowledge we expect that someone who graduates from a law degree should be able to have. Level D is honours, and level E is postgraduate. So the idea is that you can actually look at these as a self-assessment task each week. There's not a regular quiz or anything, because that wouldn't really work. But you can actually look for yourself and see what are your areas of strength and where are the areas where you're going to need some extra work. And you need to prioritise which areas you need to focus on. You may find some areas you're well ahead. You might already be up to level C or level D in those. But other areas you might find there are things that you need to focus on, and that's what we're here for, is to help you focus on those skills and practice them. And something like legal encyclopedias is one that a lot of people miss out on. And that's because they're really, really hard to use. And we're going to have a bit of a look at how to help you do that this term. But a lot of these skills too are things that are about you setting your own priorities and practicing. Not saying, well, no one told me, no one made me do it. It's a bit like learning any skill about, learning a martial art or learning a musical instrument. You need to be able to set your own objectives and to be diligent yourself, and not to go, well, nobody told me I had to do this week, so I'm going to stubbornly sit there and refuse to learn. The presumption here, as always, is that you're an adult learner. You set your own objectives. We're here to help you, but not here to baby you or to chase you up or treat you in any other way than as an adult learner. So that's the legal skills matrix. The next section is called Navigating the Law, and that deals with the practical skills you require to locate legal sources and to examine, analyse and apply them. And we cover all the traditional forms of legal knowledge like precedents and legislation and regulation, but we also go further to broaden the sources of looking at statistics and looking at other professional knowledges and interdisciplinary knowledge, because the legal profession has changed, and the expectation amongst employers is now that you'll have a broad set of research skills and not just those traditional, how do you find and analyse a case skills, because those are becoming less relevant to employers. You need to be able to do all those things. The next section is called Key Concepts, and that is a further exploration of some of the themes from this unit, from that weekly unit, and they are often sort of short statements, and some of them are connected to videos that explore those statements in more concepts in more detail. The idea of key concepts is to break down those chunks of learning into manageable pieces and to give you more things to think about and to consider. The next section is the equilibrium section. As you've no doubt heard before, there is real problems with law graduates being able to maintain a healthy life-work balance, and there are certainly indications that people in the legal profession suffer from depression and anxiety, and unfortunately these are things that those people don't suffer from before they enrol in a law degree, which means there seems to be some evidence that something about the study of law makes you more prone to those things. So we take that very seriously here, and in the equilibrium section each week there's a variety of sort of well-being study tips, other ideas, links to other external sources, quite a lot, to help you think about your own equilibrium, your own stability, your own mental health, and that of your peers and others, so you can be a responsible part of the community and help people out when they get into trouble. As I said, we take this very seriously because I think it's a very worrying set of statistics that indicates that you go into a law degree as a perfectly, normal, non-anxious, non-depressed person, and something happens during your studies that we don't have a good explanation for yet, but we are trying to make sure we give you as much support as possible through that process. So the topics we discuss in those weeks are not just research focused. There are a lot of different things and study tips and ideas and things that will hopefully be useful to you. Then the final part of each study guide is the RAMP workshop, which are the weekly modules that we will be discussing in the workshops and which form the foundation of your portfolio, which is one of your assessment items. That's your research portfolio. And this is the process of breaking an entire research project down into nice, even stages. Now it's very artificial that you would actually have like 12 weeks to work through a research project from beginning to end, but we're doing this in a deliberately measured way to make sure that you focus on the important elements one at a time. Now, in your future career, you'll use some other modification of this system. You'll decide for yourself the way in which you'll time it and the way in which you'll use it, but we're trying to get you beyond thinking about research in an unstructured way or trying to do everything at the last minute, and to think about how you plan research out broadly. So there are modules each week which describe the task, We'll be looking at these in the workshops to help you complete the task in relation to your individual research project. One thing important to note is that there are discussion questions on each of these workshops. You don't have to answer these. You don't have to write an answer to them every week. These are just to get you thinking about the research project and to think about your own practice and what you do. It's not a set of tutorial questions that you're going to be expected to provide a written answer for. It's just so you can actually think about the context and actually think about your own practice and experience. All right, so that's a run through the different parts of the study guide. It's not one of these read and remember documents where you cram it before an exam and hope to remember all the details, because that would be kind of ridiculous in the research context if you wouldn't really learn much from that. It's designed to be a springboard for you to think about the way in which you research and to improve your practice, and ultimately to help you understand what you do yourself when you research and to develop better and better procedures and techniques for finding the right answer and finding the solution to those problems.